You're listening to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. I'm Allison Boyle, aka She Dreams of Alpine, and this is the show that's dedicated to all the adventurous spirits out there who have either been transformed by the outdoors or are interested in what it looks like to step into a new, adventurous, and courageous kind of identity in their life. It doesn't matter what your background is in the outdoors, what age you're starting at, or where you grew up. If you're curious about the outdoors and using adventure as a way to reinvent yourself, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing all kinds of personal adventure stories, lessons I've learned from the mountains, teaching what I know about the outdoors and leadership, and interviewing some amazing adventurous women all along the way. I've been coaching women on becoming safe, confident, and self-sufficient backpackers and leaders of their own adventurous lives since 2018, and I know exactly what big fears and self-doubts can pop up along the way. I have so much to share with you, so let's dive in. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. You are listening to episode 24, and today I'm doing something a little bit different than I've done in my past episodes. We are actually in the middle of enrollment for our Adventurous Reinvention Experience. This is one of our signature programs that we have here at She Dreams of Alpine. It's basically a program that blends personal growth and actually going on an in-person adventure together into like one powerful experience. So we work together in a 4-month kind of container where we do weekly coaching, and we spend the summer thinking about creating a life that makes you feel as alive as you do on the trail. And at the end of our time together, we bring it all to life with an epic in-person backpacking adventure. And today I'm actually bringing on one of our past Adventurous Reinvention Experience clients from one of our past trips. So we've been running this program for 2 years now. And so today you're going to get to hear from my client, Jen. She has a really amazing story to tell. We're going to kind of dive in with her all about kind of like her hesitations maybe in joining, what she was thinking about, what was happening in her life beforehand, where her biggest growth areas were, her challenges, and what she took away from this experience and kind of stepped into after this experience. So I hope you'll enjoy the conversation that I had with her today, and that if you are considering to join us in the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, that this will give you some clarity on whether this is the right program for you. If you are interested to learn more about the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, you can go to shedreamsofalpine.com/ARE. I will also drop that into the show notes. And yeah, let's just dive into today's episode. Welcome, Jen. We're so happy to have you here with us on the Adventurous Reinvention podcast. Thank you so much for being here and joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I kind of like did a little introduction of you before this is airing, so people kind of know what this is about, but let's kick things off with like a little intro and background about you, and what brought you to the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. So what was kind of going on in your life when you first came across the Adventurous Reinvention Experience?
I so I have 2 kids, but they are adults now, and so I find myself in this place where I have a little more time. I have a
Yeah.
little bit more independence. Professionally, life is good. I'm not
Yeah.
super stressed. I'm busy, but not super stressed. But it's a time where I can really think about what is it that's important to me and what do I want to do.
Yeah.
And but also I wanted to um, find more women who were active, who were interested in having adventures.
Right.
And yeah, so I was reaching out and finding some ways to do that. And this seemed to match that.
Yeah, and I remember like kind of reading some of your when anybody joins the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, we kind of like ask them some questions about what brought them to join. I remember reading yours, and it was you had been in the Backpacking Badass program before because you had just started. Were you getting into backpacking like the year before kind of this experience?
Yeah, so it's actually a pretty interesting story. So I had backpacked with my husband when we first got married. So
Okay.
it was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, once we had kids, we didn't really do it quite so much. We hiked and everything, but um So a couple of the year before I did the backpacking badass,
Yeah.
my son was home and he was talking about being out in Vegas and he was just gonna for work and he was gonna stay
Yeah.
and do a backpacking at Zion National Park. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. He's like, well, I'm going by myself. Why don't you just come?
I love
And
that.
so it was like spur of the moment. I had
Yes.
probably a week's notice. I'm like, I'm going.
Oh, wow. That is really spur of the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I booked my flight. I picked it, I picked up my backpack from the 1990s.
Yeah.
Um, and I went. And I mean, we had a fabulous time. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, Zion's pretty incredible too. And then being with your son, I'm sure like helps that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, though, what I realized was we were going along. I didn't have a map of the where we were going.
Right.
I
Yeah.
didn't have anything downloaded. I had what he suggested for water, but
Yeah.
I was so nervous about like there was not really a place to replenish our water
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah. It can
Um,
be tricky out in those environments.
yeah, and so I was so nervous about running out of water, and I don't know. So what happened was I ended up getting dehydrated,
Yeah.
and luckily we were right by our camp where we were going to camp. Um,
Mm.
but I had to stop. So I was glad I stopped when I did, and I could at least make it back to where we were. We had set up our tent because we wanted to go on to see this other site.
Yeah.
But so I stopped. I went back. I got kind of sick, but
Yeah.
he went ahead for a little bit because there was something he wanted to see. But he almost stepped on a rattlesnake. And
Yeah.
so, like after that whole experience, I just thought I I want to be more prepared.
Right.
I want to be able to know where I am. And it was great that he could show his expertise and like, mom,
Yeah.
this is what food you want to pack and this is what you want to do. But on the other hand, if something had happened to him, I would have had no idea where we were and what we were doing.
Yeah.
Um,
Or something, or you guys got separated somehow or some,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what led me to taking the backpacking badass course.
Right.
My whole goal of that was like, I want to be self-sufficient. I
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to go out by myself, and I still
Yeah.
don't really have that desire, but I want to be able to know where I am, lead somebody else, and
Right.
be there. So yeah, so I
Yeah.
joined the Backpacking Badass, and then then of course I wanted to use it.
Yes, totally. And you went on a trip after that, after the like the backpacking badass program in
Yeah,
particular, where you got to like kind of practice some of those leadership skills, right? If I'm remembering
I
correctly.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there were two women who were interested in doing it, and they hadn't really backpacked before.
Yeah.
And they were interested in giving it a try. And so we did an overnight, and it was kind of funny. I am a person who gets lost wherever I go. Like
Yeah.
I always get lost. I have a horrible sense of direction.
Right.
Um,
I
but
know many women can relate to that, like identifying with that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, but I had it so worked out and so mapped and everything ready. Like we got to this one point where they were like, Jen, I think we're going the wrong way.
Mm.
No, nope, I know we've got this. And I felt 98% confident.
Yeah.
Like, but it just felt really good to be totally prepared,
Yes.
everything ready and ready for, a pivot if we needed to. But
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. Yeah, because I remember like kind of reading over your kind of what brought you to the program for the Adventurous Reinvention Experience program. It's a lot of what drew you there is like kind of even stacking on more of those skills. I think what
Mhm.
initially drew you to the program is like, yeah, the meeting, connecting with a group of women, and also like stacking like more of your outdoor skills and like becoming even like stepping into it even more
Yes.
as like a
Yeah.
leader. And I know that what's interesting about your story is I think like the coaching side, the aspect of that program was like not quite on your radar as much. I
Mhm.
feel like I wrote down this one. I'm not in an aspect of reinventing myself, but just making, I just really liked this quote. You said, I'm not in a space of reinventing myself, but making more time to do what brings me joy, which
Mhm.
I thought was really relatable and also like a really valid reason to do something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I think that's really interesting. Like, I would love to hear your take on, joining an experience that does have like this two aspects, but not necessarily being like, oh, I don't fully relate when you join to that other aspect. Does that
Mhm.
question make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, the interesting part too is that in my professional life, I do coaching.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and so I've been like I've worked with a coach before, but it was more on the professional side of life.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, okay, well, yeah, for me, getting into backpacking was kind of the reinvention,
Yeah.
right?
Totally. And that's
But
like a lot of people's calling too
yeah,
when they do this. They're like, I do want to reinvent this side of my life.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you were kind of stepping into that already.
I was.
Yeah.
And I knew I could do more. Like I'd only done one night
Yeah.
and I knew I could do more. But I was like, okay, just like keep an open mind about it
Yeah.
and learn about how somebody else does the
Mhm.
coaching and small group coaching and all that. And so I think I joined almost every one of the sessions, if not
Yeah.
in person, like watch them. And I think really what started to happen was like the prompts stood out to me.
Yeah.
And I started playing around with them. And at first it was kind of half-hearted, but then
Yeah.
I found myself after we got through it a little bit, I found myself going back
Yeah.
and like taking a look at them
Like, oh,
again.
I'm curious what my real answer is to this, or like more deeply, the answer is this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I just think that's like, yeah, kind of interesting because I know you're not the only person. I've talked to a couple other people in the past that have told me like, oh, I really joined for like the in-person and the outdoor mentorship like aspect, and then like ended up taking more away from it than they were anticipating, which I think is kind of cool. So I'm just for anybody out there who's like, oh, I really not quite sure what I'll get out of. I think because reinvention is here's where I'm at. Like reinvention is kind of like a big like thing to wrap your
Yes,
mind around. And it's like, well, I
yeah.
don't know if I want to like fully reinvent myself, but like maybe there's something that I hadn't considered that like really feels like true for me that I want to bring to life in my life.
Yeah. And I think through some of the sessions, what I appreciated about the way you mapped it out was that it felt really big at first. I think that's why I was like, oh, I don't need to reinvent.
Yeah.
But as it went on, it wasn't, and you made this really clear, it's not about the total 180,
Right.
right? It
Yeah.
can be something really tiny.
Right.
And so honestly, throughout the workshop, I shifted a few times. Like I was like, oh, okay, well then in that case, I'm going to focus here.
Yeah.
And then that didn't really resonate so much after a while. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to focus here. And it really, honestly, it wasn't until our one-on-one coaching session,
Yeah.
um, where I had started, like I had been thinking about what I want to do when I retire. Like I was seeing retirement down the road a little bit, and I was thinking about what I wanted to do. And I had this idea and I started to flesh it out, but then somebody else started it. The business
Oh,
had already
yes. I
start.
do remember talking to you about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And and that was I came to terms with that. Like it was
Mm,
okay. And I was reading Liz Gilbert's Big Magic at the same time.
yes.
And like these ideas come around and sometimes they land with you and sometimes it's just not the right time and they go on to somebody else. And I was like,
Right.
okay, I
I
can
think
deal
that's
with
a
that.
beautiful way to think about ideas. Yeah, like collaborating
Mhm.
with ideas and stuff. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Um, but I also think like the idea of just playing around with possibilities and
Yeah.
that I feel like those are the words you actually said.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so I was like, okay, just play around. I tend to be a perfectionist. I
Yeah.
tend to like,
Relatable.
yeah, I get my idea and I'm very logical. I map out an action plan.
Yeah. Totally.
I go for it. But um, so I just started totally playing around with ideas and saying, don't get caught or latched onto any one of them. Like
Yeah.
just let things sit for a while. And
Yeah.
you know what? Like after a while, I latched on to like, wait a second. This is something I was actually in my little journal.
Yeah. I love it.
And I was going back because the one thing you said was like, what are the five, I think it was here, what are five things you've been curious about but have never done?
Yeah.
And I ended up like months later going back to that list
Hmm.
and just playing around more with that. And now I'm at a point where I've kind of shifted where it's not like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Now it's like, I can't wait to retire so I can do that.
Ooh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah. And I've moved up my retirement date.
Oh, that's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is cool when you like, it's kind of, it's such a subtle, like, different way of telling, like, talking to yourself and like,
Mhm.
believe, it's like, it's a difference between your believing in the possibility, I feel like, than kind of being like, I don't know, like, not unsure of it, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also like I I'm letting myself be okay with not having it all mapped out,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Which is so
So,
hard for us perfectionists, like,
yes.
let it be known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it involves going back to school. So,
Right.
um,
Interesting.
yeah, I want to, my idea is to go
I
to,
was like, I don't know if you want to share, but do you feel like
yeah,
sharing?
I can share. I'm not going to share the timeline because that's
Okay.
not there publicly, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but I'm going to go to pastry school.
I love it, Jen.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
just sounds so fun. I've had things like
Right.
that written in like my possibility lists. I remember telling Michael, I was like, maybe I'll just quit everything and become a chef or something. Like
Mhm.
I've always like enjoyed cooking, but I think that's so fun. Like, why not?
I know. When I was in high school and, preparing to go to college, that was on my list, like culinary school
Yeah.
or education. Um, and I didn't know enough, like there's no internet at that point, so I didn't know enough about what it would take to go to culinary school. So I went into education, which I love. I'm really glad I did. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah, but it's always been there. Like before YouTube was a thing, I would stand in my kitchen, and pretend I was doing little videos of baking.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, I also I'm not making myself make a plan for after that,
Yeah.
right? I'm
Like
gonna
let
do
it
it.
unfold. Like let
Yeah.
it, yes. That's what it's like. Sometimes we overplan our lives, but like sometimes what we really just need to like follow is that like next step or like, in Big Magic, like that curiosity or that idea that comes
Mhm.
to us and like let it unfold from there. Because I think with so many of my experiences, I'm sure you've felt this way too, Jen, in like different areas of your life. But like you do one thing and it kind of leads to the next thing.
Mhm.
And you wouldn't have imagined that beforehand.
Right.
Yeah.
All of the jobs that I have done within education, none of them have been pre-planned.
Right. Yeah.
And in some ways, I would get down on myself, like, wow, I don't have my life mapped out. I
Yeah.
don't, I'm just taking opportunities as they come. But then I remember, like, I didn't just take any opportunity. Like, a lot of
Right.
opportunities came along, but you start to know what is a good fit and what's exciting.
Yeah. Like what feels more like a full body yes and where you want to head and like which ones don't. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's so smart. I think like there's a couple things in there too that I just like think are really interesting that you said. But you were talking about like this just comes up for a lot of people. When we talk about reinvention, it's not about like making your past choices wrong and like being, in fact, I think it's better to like fully own and be like, these are the choices that brought me here to like the version of myself that like wants to step in to something different and pursue a new curiosity or a new possibility. And like that work has prepared me for like wherever I am today that is ready for whatever that next step is for me. I think
Yes.
that's really beautiful because I've always felt very similar too. I'm like, gone through the divorce. I've gone through, the engineering career, people might assume that I think the engineering career was a mistake and when I could have been doing this all along, but I think that led to this. It needed to happen that way, sort of
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And then the other thing that I really like, you didn't really say, but you kind of alluded to is just sometimes I think what's really important for people in this experience to do if they're like considering doing it is you might not know, like a lot of people are like, I don't really know what area I would like to work on or focus on. You don't need to know. Like a lot of times, some people like maybe what you're doing is focusing on the outdoor mentorship aspect and then just staying open and giving yourself like space to explore what comes up for you is sometimes the perfect thing for somebody going through something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that was really like smart and wise of you because it's like, yeah, I'm just like open to whatever comes up and I'll see what it is when I'm there.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. We kind of like we talked a lot. I like jumped, I'm looking at my notes of like things that we were going to touch base on, but we like I love the little path that we went down.
Yeah.
Um okay. So okay, let's talk about like when you were joining the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. Had I can't remember like when you joined the Backpacking Badass program, like what year that was. But had you already heard of this program? Were you already considering it beforehand, or was this something you considered like when we kind of opened it up for that second round?
I had not heard about it, but
Yeah.
um, I was thinking, like, I kept following you on
Yeah.
Instagram and
Yeah.
then, oh, if she does something in person, I'm going to sign up. If she does something in person, I'm going to sign up. And
Yeah.
then I saw it was coming and I was like, okay, I can picture myself on the couch right over there,
I
like
love it.
pulling it up. And I was so worried that I was going to not get a spot
Yeah. Yeah.
that I think I was like the second or third person.
I
Um,
can't remember, but
sign up.
yeah.
Yeah, because I remember them you posting like the next day, my little name with sticky note went on, and I was like, yes,
Yeah.
there I am.
Yeah. I love the sticky notes. Um, Okay, but I was like trying to remember if we had a convert because I know you joined the intermediate group for our
Yeah.
experience,
Hmm.
and I like if people don't know what that's like referring to, like who's listening to this, like in the Adventurous Reinvention Experience, we everyone does the coaching part of the program together. So like you get to meet everyone. There's like the last few couple of years we've done this, there's 24 spots. And we have two groups of 12, and those are separated into like beginner group trip and an intermediate group trip. But like the coaching is done with everyone, all 24 people together. Um, were you like, did you already know you wanted to do the intermediate trip? I mean, I'm assuming you did probably because you had some experience, but
I signed up for the intermediate trip
yeah.
mostly because I wanted to challenge myself with the distance. Like
Mm,
I knew I was physically capable.
yeah.
The only thing that I was like, I don't know, is the
Nervous.
elevation gain.
Yeah.
Um, but also I'm from the East Coast and it's out in California.
Yeah.
I was like, if I'm going out, I might as well go out and do, like the longer trip. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I was like, just go for it, do the longer trip.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people like, especially those of y'all in the Midwest or in the East that are coming, this might be the Eastern Sierras might be your like first touch point with like bigger mountains or like higher
Mhm.
altitude in specific. And like the Sierras are notorious for like having more elevation gain than some areas. Though I mean, you guys have some pretty gnarly mountains out there where you live too. But
Yeah,
it's like I think a little bit different of an experience. What was that your first time kind of in the Sierras?
it was. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's cool. Was there, I think this is like an interesting question I've asked some other people is, was there a moment like along the way in this experience where you thought like, what did I get myself into? Like the oh shit moment.
Yeah. I think for me, it was a little bit more like in the prep
Yeah.
than it was. So honestly, it was um prepping my food.
Oh yeah.
That because I think
That can be a very stressful part for people, especially for a longer trip, because the intermediate trip is
yeah,
like 5 days and 4 nights.
yeah. And like coupled with my experience with the water with my son,
Yes. Yeah.
and like I was at that point in time, I was working with a nutritionist.
Mm,
So really dialing in, like I was a person who did not fuel myself enough. And
Yeah.
so I had finally got things dialed in and I was like, oh my gosh, how is this going to work?
Yeah.
Um, so that was one part. But honestly, when we met and you were going over some things and you shared the spreadsheet
Yeah.
with,
With the
you know,
food spreadsheet. Yeah.
yes. And I added a column for protein because I had really been paying attention
No,
when
I
my
love that.
was about
Yeah.
getting protein.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I think I ended up being the most proud of is like, I had my food
Added.
tiled in tight.
Me and you are the same, Jen. We love a spreadsheet.
I love a
We like get
spreadsheet.
excited and like feel fulfilled after a good like spreadsheet. We're like,
Oh,
okay, I'm more
yes.
service now.
I added formulas. I
I love that. Did you like try to reach? I mean, like, this is something people ask me about. This is not necessarily related to the adventurous reinvention experience, but sometimes people will ask me, like, how do you know you're getting enough protein on your backpacking trips? And like, most of the time, I tell people, like, if you're only on like a 2, 3 day trip, it's not something you should probably overly concern yourself about. Like, it's something you can
Yeah,
think about, make sure you're getting protein, but you probably don't need to like overly panic if you're getting enough protein. You know, on
yeah.
longer trips, it is something it's nice to think about sometimes. How did you like, what was your kind of goal with the protein when you were out there?
Well, my goal had been about 150 to 160 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
Like, that
That's a
had
lot for
been,
a backpacking trip.
yeah, and then like that's my daily goal.
Yeah.
Um, and so what I did was I worked out because I was working with the nutritionist at the time and we were
Yeah.
using this app to track everything. The other part where I was the oh shit moment was I was also training for a triathlon.
Oh, yes, I remember.
And so it kind of was
Was
like
that was like before the trip, right?
it was.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. It was like a month before
Yeah, yeah.
because
I
it just
remember.
got to a point where I was like, oh my gosh, I have to bike
A
this
lot
mountain,
of
I have
things.
to swim, I have to do this, I have to get this elevation in, and I have to hike.
I think I was like, Jen, I think you're doing enough training. Like, I
I
think
know.
with all of your training, like, you're fine. Like, don't overly worry about it.
Yeah, yeah. I did finally calm down and
Yeah.
not worry so much about the elevation. I was like, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But what really helped was when I would go on my long hikes, like I could see then how many calories I had burned
Yeah.
because of the app that I was using. And so it helped me to know I need this many calories and
Mm.
I really would strive to get this many from
Yeah.
protein.
Protein. Nice.
So that
Maybe
was helpful.
like give people a sneak peek. Like, how did you incorporate more protein into your plan for when we were out there on the trail? Was there anything like in particular that you did?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like you did like a protein powder or like
I
no?
did. So a
Yes.
couple of things. I don't, can we say brand names? I don't know how
Oh
that,
yeah. I
okay.
mean,
So honestly, there's a Kodiak like
yeah. Oh
protein
yeah. Like
oatmeal.
the pancake oatmeal company. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I used that oatmeal, so the individual oatmeal packets.
Yeah.
And so I used that. And I may have, yeah, I used that. I also used like these turkey stick
Yeah.
as a
Like
snack.
jerky. Yeah.
Mhm. Actually, the one recipe that you had shared, and I think it's on Backcountry
Foodie.
Foodie, yes,
Yeah.
which it'll be a go-to now forever,
Yeah.
is
I love that.
the yogurt pellets,
Oh
the
yes.
dehydrated yogurt.
That's my favorite.
Well, then I added a scoop of protein powder to
Mm,
that,
so smart.
and I think I added some chia.
Yeah.
Um, so it boosted the amount of protein.
Yeah.
And then, so every morning I had that along with the protein oatmeal.
Yeah.
So that was one. And then there was
Ooh, you
another,
had a big breakfast. I don't remember like that, but we all kind of did breakfast a little bit like solo and not solo, but like people were kind of getting ready and like doing their own things. Yeah. That's a
yeah,
hearty breakfast. That's a good way to
yeah,
start the day.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did that was a really good amount was also from backcountry
Backcountry
foodie.
foodie. Yeah.
Yeah, was the peanut butter shake.
Mm, yeah.
And
Those are good.
I think I used peanut butter protein powder. I think I
Yeah.
used a different kind of added a little more protein powder. Um, that I had that twice on the
Yeah.
trail, and that was really good.
Yeah, she makes great recipes. So for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Backcountry Foodie, that's Erin. That's her business. She does like a bunch of recipes that are really just focused towards backpackers and through hikers. And I mean, like hikers could also use it too. It doesn't have to be just for backpacking. But what's great about it is she really thinks about nutrition and like also keeping your food light, which is nice, especially if you're a through hiker and you're like trying to save weight and things like that. So she gets really creative with all of those things.
Yeah. It's funny because I included tuna packets because that's great protein,
Yeah.
but they are heavy.
Yeah, they are heavier. Yeah.
But
So those are all things that you have to think through. I hope
yeah.
hopefully now that you kind of like had a trip where you were had multiple days like that where you were thinking really intentionally about what you bring, it makes it easier, I think, for the future trips that you're going to do. You're like, I'm going to piecemeal
Oh yeah.
like
Yeah.
what I did from this trip, maybe swap out this one thing, and then now it's like less stressful. Um,
Yeah.
that's kind of like one of the reasons I really like to have y'all prepping your own food as part of this experience because for me I think
Mhm.
that's like a really big thing that people don't think about and learn about. And if you ever have aspirations in the future or you want to be open to like maybe doing longer trips, it's nice to kind of learn all those different components that go into it to think about
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
things and staying
Yeah.
fueled. And I love that you brought in the element of like thinking through your protein even
Hmm.
more on that too. So thank you for sharing a little
Yeah,
behind the
sure.
scenes there. Okay, we talked a little bit about like some of the coaching stuff. Was there anything like that we didn't talk about with the coaching part of the program that I don't know, you wanted to talk through here or any like specific things that really stuck out with you during that part of our program?
Um, you know what? There were two things that stuck out.
Yeah.
One was a tool, um, the if then, right? Because the if then, I call it a two column note.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have school leaders do this,
Yeah.
but it wasn't something that I would do for like personal things.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, just the idea of making a decision about when to retire. You and
Right.
I talked about some of the things that I was nervous about, and you were like, well, so what would happen? And I was like, well, I guess, and I figured something out. And so
Yeah.
as I went on through
You're
some
talking
other
about like that
things,
hesitation, like that unknown, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, I don't know what will happen if I do this. Yeah. And like really answering the question is sometimes,
yeah. Well, and like
yeah.
the worst case scenario. So
Yeah. The
what's the
worst case
worst
scenario.
case scenario
Yeah.
if if you leave your job, what's the
Right.
worst case scenario? Well, I'm not going to have health insurance. Okay,
Yeah.
well, let's talk through that. So, like, just saying this is the worst thing that can happen, and then kind of having a backup plan. So, when I coach with people, I was like, it's being proactive instead of reactive.
Right. And I just think it's also like so smart. Like sometimes people are, I mean, we already do spend a lot of time like thinking about doom and gloom, but a lot of time we do that in our head.
Yeah,
And like, okay, like let's just realistically write out like what we think could actually happen if it hits our worst case scenario, like be real with ourselves. And then sometimes it's like not as scary. Like we look at it from like a observer lens and we're like, okay, well, like, I also know that Jen would figure this out. And like, she's not going to let herself get probably to that point. I
yeah,
remember like doing that when I was thinking about quitting. Well, when I knew I was going to quit my job. And then I was freaking out kind of the month before quitting my
yeah,
job. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm going to like not have any money and not have anywhere to live. And I'm going to not be able to take care of myself. And I was like, wait, that's not like my realistic worst case scenario is maybe I kind of run down my savings. I move in with my dad for like a month and then I get a job. Like Allison's not going to let herself just like completely lose it. Like I have enough self-trust that I'll figure out the next step. Like, and then
mhm,
it made it less scary,
yeah.
to do it.
But you know what? It is that it's that pause.
Yes.
and that self-trust. And
Yeah.
that's huge. It's
It's
huge because
huge.
when you're just spiraling in the doom and gloom,
Right. It's hard to step into the self-trust when you're just spiraling. Yeah.
it is. And so making yourself pause and I think actually write it down, you do start to get into the like, oh wait,
Yeah.
I can figure this out.
Yeah, so like that's super powerful. And then like also people listening, if you're doing this tool for yourself, like I also think thinking about the best case scenario is also a really powerful option as well. Cause you're like, okay, but what if
Yeah.
it does work out? Or like, what would be my best case scenario for this? And spending
Mhm.
time in that land, because we don't spend enough time there sometimes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So
So the one thing about the coaching was the tool, but here's the other thing was um, having the group of women, like doing it in a small group.
yeah.
When it got to a point where I was like, start question a little bit, self-doubt is going to creep in. It's just
Yeah.
natural.
It's natural, normal.
But when it gets to that point, and then when somebody else, it became a place where people could really open up and be
Yeah.
vulnerable. And
Yeah.
so then when someone, verbalized some type of self-doubt, other
Yes.
people were like, hey, we're not gonna leave you behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
It seemed like everybody's biggest fear was, I'm gonna be the slowest one.
Yeah, exactly. It always is. It
Guess
really
what?
always
We can't
is.
all be the slowest ones.
Yeah. And it's okay. Like maybe
Yeah,
sometimes, maybe you will be. And is that a reason to like count yourself out of an
right,
experience that could otherwise be like also amazing? And it's like nobody's going to leave you behind. We're
right,
here to support you through the entire thing. Yeah, I always am like,
mhm,
I don't think that's a good enough reason to tell yourself no to something
right.
because, yeah, it's like literally a fear we all have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so that was really helpful for I just started to get the sense and the real feeling that this is a group where there's not going to be judgment,
Yeah.
where we've got each other's backs and you belong.
Yeah. And that's
So,
like, I mean, I think that's a really a testament to like all of y'all. You bring that energy too. And like, I don't know, I do also, I like the container like allows that kind of space because we're all talking about and like being really open about certain things. But you guys also really, I mean, we've gotten really great groups. I think that y'all bring that safety
mhm,
to these containers and holding space for each other and like each other's fears and doing it anyways, right? Because we're all in very
yeah,
similar positions
yeah, yeah,
when you join.
yeah,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the backpacking side of things, like our actual like on-trail experience when we got to the in-person part of the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. So, we talked a little bit about your backpacking skills before the program and kind of like you had gone on that you trip with your husband and then your son and then you took the backpacking badass program and you did a trip with some ladies and then you kind of joined this group experience. How did you feel kind of like ending this experience with your kind of confidence to maybe step up into even more kind of like the leadership role and doing more of those things?
yeah. I definitely feel more confident. And
Was there anything you were like trying to work on in particular? I'm curious.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was definitely trying to work on, well, the food,
Yeah.
but I was also trying to work on navigation.
Yeah.
And so, for, for me, being a part of the group but also watching you and Sonia and Kelly, the other leaders,
Yeah.
watching you all navigate, not
Right.
just like where we are, but the decisions that you
Like
need to
thinking through
make.
why are we choosing this for a campsite or like that. Yeah.
Yep. All of that. You all showed, well, first of all, you included us
Yeah.
in all of those, like that thought process. Um, but made us, we had I can picture us and before we started with all of our gear laid out and then going over the map and
Yeah.
we all had things downloaded on our phones and it was just helpful to be a group part of that process
Right.
to feel more comfortable and say, hey, there are going to be times and you can't go on a certain trail or whatever.
Right.
And
Or maybe it's like obvious on the map, but it's not so obvious in your vision. Like I can
yeah, it's
remember
life.
our hike up to the Rocky Lake Basin. It kind
Oh
of
yeah.
was a little meandery, right? Like it was not quite so obvious trail, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but it helped me to know that, like, then I would think back to how we prepped, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's why we saved a bigger section of this map, and that's why we're not just saying this is the trail we're following,
Right.
because you want to be prepared for other options if you need them. So I
Yeah.
definitely feel a lot more confident. I'm not 100% by any
Yeah.
means, but
Well, yeah, but you're
uh,
going to keep using those skills and you're going to stack that
yeah.
confidence too. It's kind of that skill, like one of my biggest goals is to like show you it's not quite as hard as like I think it feels in the beginning. Like
Mhm.
there's some very simple things we can do to like really support ourselves in the navigation aspect of it. But I
Yeah.
do think it's really like one cool opportunity that you guys get on these trips is like getting to see through like thinking through decisions.
Yes.
I can think in like our trip, well, Rocky Basin, like the hike up to Rocky Basin Lake wasn't an obvious trail. That was one of them. But then I think it was like day 3 where we were deciding what next section to camp in, and
Hmm.
we were looking ahead at the maps and like where the flattest terrain was, and we were like making decisions like should we stay here, should we push further, and like getting to
Yeah.
bring you guys into those conversations I think is really valuable too for y'all's like
Yeah. Yep.
experience.
And I think the last night I think we were going to camp somewhere, but then there ended up really not
Yeah,
being a water source, and so
right.
somewhere else with a
Yeah,
water source.
yeah, it was the
Um,
best water source we had
yes.
without hiking a lot more.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I definitely feel more confident in that. I feel way more confident in being prepared with my food and my water.
yeah, that's
Um,
good.
and like, so after that, I came back and I planned another trip with some other women,
Yes.
and like intentionally, like this time I really did like look for the water sources and said,
Mm,
okay, we only have to carry this much water because
yeah,
we're going to get to a water source there. And I had a better sense of how to, um,
like make that decision
yes, and how
and
to
feel
research
safe,
that a little bit
confident in it.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas even on the trip that we took on the ARE trip,
Yeah.
I carried way too much water the whole time.
Right. That's like part of the learning
It's
process
okay.
though, I think too. And
Yeah.
I always say like, especially if you're in the backpacking badass program, you're not necessarily on this trip with like other people who know. You always want to err on the side of safety when it's coming to your
Mhm.
water. But like it's a balance, right? Because if you carry too much, you're gonna make your pack like weigh so much more. So
Yes.
I do remember us being like with that 4th day, I guess we were like, we don't for sure know because it was a new to both of
Hmm.
all 3 of us guides like out there, new to us area. And so we were a little bit exploring with you guys.
Yeah.
So we were like, okay, this is what our thoughts is, and our research has told us there's water in this spot. But like, let's also go prepared and everyone bring enough water just in case. And so we had that kind of like balance of, yeah, you don't always 100% know. Sometimes you can do the best research that you can, and you have
Right.
to like make those risk assessments out there. So that's
Yeah.
awesome to see
Yeah.
that you're like applying that to your trips too. And I'm sure you would feel like going back to Zion like more confident and kind of
Oh my
safe.
gosh.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole different, yeah. It'd be totally
Yeah.
different.
So, what were like what were would you say your biggest concerns before the trip? Like anything in particular? I mean, it sounds like food maybe was one of them.
Food was
Yeah.
one of them. The other one was elevation gain.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Tell
I was
me,
just,
walk me through that. Like, how did you feel like, did you feel prepared for that with the training that we did?
I was 100% prepared.
Yeah.
Um, Even, maybe I shouldn't say this, but even not having done, like, in the last couple of weeks, I
Right.
did. get to quite the elevation.
But you were
That's
like
the
doing your
training plan.
triathlon stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or coming off
Um,
of that even. Yeah.
yeah. But I just, yeah, I just thought, okay, well, uh, again, they're not going to leave me behind.
Right.
And chances are I'm not going to be somebody to pull everyone behind.
Yeah.
So, it was just kind of like, it is
I'm going to
what it
give it a
is.
chance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah. How did you feel about it when you were actually out there? Did it feel comfortable for you?
Yes. Yes. I was totally prepared. Well, the other thing I really liked about, I think the size of the group
Yeah.
was that, and this was good for a lot of different reasons. So
Yeah.
you could, it wasn't just a straight hike, just keep going, start to finish, right?
Yeah.
Good
Like a
breaks, good
marching group or
pause.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then what you could do is if I felt really energetic, I'd be like, hey, I'm going to pop up towards the front of the group because the front
Yeah.
of the group tended to move a little bit more quickly. It seemed like there was kind of, it kind of broke into some natural paces.
Right. We usually have
Um,
about kind of like three kind of paces,
yeah.
four paces,
Yeah.
it seems like with most of our groups.
Yeah. And you could kind of decide what you felt like in the moment. Right.
Yeah.
So I can picture us going up. I think was it the last day doing all the switchback?
We had switchbacks our first day going up to Chicken Lake, and then our last day getting out of that little I forget what the meadow area was called that we
Yeah.
camped on that last day.
Yeah. I think it was the
Um,
last day. And um, I remember thinking like, oh, you know what? I have no desire to like trek
to
really
be
quickly
fast
up
up
this.
this,
Like,
yeah.
let me just chill. And then so I just kind of like hung back. And the other cool thing was you by doing that, you could connect with
Yeah,
different people throughout. Because I got to tell you, and it wasn't the same people in the
right.
front, in the middle, and in the back. It
Yeah, people's
changed
energies
the
flow
whole
differently.
time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I
you have
really
like your
like
good
that.
days and you have your bad day, or not bad days necessarily, but like,
Minutes.
yeah, sometimes bad days, but like you have your like meh days, like I'm feeling less energetic and I'm feeling more energetic. I think that's a nice thing about it too.
Mhm. And
And
even throughout from mile to mile, you could,
right.
and the other thing was like, even if it didn't matter, if I felt good about my pace, I'm like, you know what? I haven't talked to so and so, and I'd really like to talk with them a little bit. And
Yeah.
then I would just kind of like find where they were and just
Yeah.
be with them for a little bit. And
Love that.
it was really nice.
Yeah, you guys were really like your group was really good at connecting with one another and like talking. I feel like everyone got to know each other pretty
Mhm.
well in the
Yeah.
group. So I loved that too. Um So, okay, what was like, tell us about one of your favorite moments from the trail and the trail experience.
Mm. Okay, well, one of what I just talked about was one of my favorite aspects of it was that you
Oh,
could,
yeah, getting to talk to everyone
move
and
around, getting to talk around.
yeah,
Um, I absolutely loved that we were camped by water, I think
yes.
every night.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, pretty much every night. We always try to do that. That's always
yeah,
ideal.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But the lake,
yeah.
I mean,
That was just so amazing.
it
I
was.
can't believe we had that whole place to ourselves.
I
Yeah,
know, I know.
pro secret. We're not revealing it here.
Can't say where it was.
You could figure it out pretty easily though.
Oh my gosh. That and it was the whole package, right?
Yeah,
It was a challenge to get there, right?
yeah.
I think we ended up hiking a
It was,
little
you had to work for
longer.
it. Yeah.
We did have to work for it. It was one of those like, oh my God, we've got to be there now. And then like,
Yes.
oh wait, let's go over this.
There was a lot
Um,
of false summits, so to
yes,
speak,
this
in that.
crater, this not crater. Let's go over this like
Well, in that
rock.
one, we didn't quite know where we were going to camp either because the
Yeah.
topo was like, we're like, well, maybe this spot, but then we were just trying to feel it out once we got there, what looked best.
Yep.
So that's also what kind of made it like,
Yeah.
oh, not there yet, not this spot yet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. So it was good. We had to work to get there and it made it that much more spectacular, right?
yeah,
But then, the swimming, the weather couldn't have been better. It
yeah.
was
We had great
perfect.
weather.
But then also, I mean, with our group, that was, we also had just a really open, emotional,
Yeah.
in lots of ups and down emotions conversation there.
Yeah.
And like that was just so touching. And that actually, quite a few of the things that were said in that conversation have
Yeah.
stuck with me and have impacted me since then. And um,
Same.
so, yeah, I have a picture of that blown up,
Oh, I love
and
that.
because it's just,
It was a really special, like all of our trips, I feel like have really special moments, but that one's always going to like stand out to me because I don't know, being there alone, like having that place all to ourselves, and then like you said, like just really connecting on a different level with everyone was
yeah,
so unique.
yeah,
Yeah, y'all had like a cool trip. I mean, I know all the trips are cool because but I hadn't hiked that section, like some of that section. So half of it I knew, and half of it I was like, well, I'm also seeing this area for the first time. But you kind of got like different experiences at each campsite, which was like really
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
And after the fact, I was like, wow, that was really neat because you got to like do riverside camping. We camped near this meadow area and we like hiked up into this like alpine lake basin area. And then Chicken Springs was like more normal, like, oh, well, it still was alpine, but it was like more
Mhm,
traditional, I feel like. But yeah, you
mhm.
guys had a really cool, like all
Yeah.
around trip
But
experience.
then actually, even the last night with the
Yes.
New Year shower,
Yes.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
It seems like for some reason a lot of our trips coincide with the what is it, the
I
Perseid
don't know what
meteor
it's
shower.
called.
It's like it happens like every year. But I got to see one in 2023 with one of our groups, and then our group got to see it the last night we were there. A few of us woke
Mhm.
up at like midnight or something and
Yeah.
watched it. Yeah, that was
And
cool.
I had not really seen, I had seen a shooting star like
Yeah.
once before
Yeah.
that in my life. I never see them. And so
Yeah.
just to lay there out in the open and just see them going and going and the chatter and
Yes.
it
Yeah,
was
it's
just,
fun.
it's interesting. On my team meetings and when we have meetings, we do little check-ins.
Yeah.
And the other day there was a check-in. It's like, um, what is a time in your life when you've said, oh, it doesn't get any better than this?
Yeah.
And those two moments are exactly what I thought of.
Yeah, I agree. Like you
Yeah.
really just drop into it and it's just like, wow, I could just do this all the time and like be here. Like this is all it
Yeah.
is. Sometimes I think
Yep.
about that after trips. I'm like, maybe I'll just be like in the wilderness forever and
Yeah.
like I'm sure a lot of people who like are listening to this podcast or have some experience outdoors have felt the same way. But yeah, there's like some really magical moments that you can have kind of like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I remember at the beginning of this art conversation, you mentioned that one of your big like incentives to join this was connecting with a group of women and kind of like having that experience. What did like being in a group of women on this kind of adventure bring up for you? How did you like did that kind of like meet your expectations of meeting like a group of strangers basically
Mhm.
and going on this kind of adventure together?
Yeah. So I tend to be more of an introvert,
Yeah.
with an extrovert, a healthy dose
Yeah,
of
I could say I
extrovert.
identify similarly. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Um, and so there were actually a few times when I had to remind myself that that's why I was there,
Yeah.
because it would have been really easy because here you're with people the whole day,
Yeah.
right? And when you're hiking and you're eating lunch, and yeah, you can step aside and you can be in your own head. It's not like when we're hiking, sometimes there's chatter and sometimes it's really quiet.
Yeah. Sometimes everyone's just like focused. It just depends on,
Yeah,
yeah, the mood
yeah.
or the energy.
But then, so we'd get to the campsite and, set up tents and everything. And for me, I found myself having a tendency to just be like, I just need to chill.
Yeah.
I just want a little bit of alone time. And so there were a couple of times where like, you didn't come here for alone time.
Right.
You came here to build a
Connect.
sense of community. And you're not
Yeah.
going to do that if you just sit and listen the whole time, like you also
Yeah.
have to talk.
Yeah.
And if you stay in your tent.
Yeah.
So, it was a little bit of that. Um,
Like pushing yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah,
you're still you've made some pretty good connections with some of the women in that group. Like you're still planning things with some of them, right? Correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep. So we're planning a trip for the fall. So reach out to some
I
people. And,
love that.
sometimes in some ways, it's just we're connected through social media
Yeah.
and, even just commenting on each other's posts here and there and
Yeah.
I feel that connection. I don't
Right.
think we can do what we did and not feel connected, right?
Yeah.
So there are some that maybe I won't ever see in person again, but
Yeah.
I still feel that connection.
Yeah. I understand that.
But yeah, I've met up with a few and I think we'll continue to try and do that.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about um, Brene Brown talks about the difference between fitting in and belonging.
Mm.
And I think that was something that came up for me during the trip, but also like afterwards. And like fitting in, she talks about is like when you kind of like you change yourself
Yeah.
in order to fit in
Like, yeah,
the
right.
group, right? Whereas having a sense of belonging is that you can be yourself and still
Right.
feel that and you haven't changed yourself in order to belong.
Right.
And I feel like that trip really exemplified that
That's great. I
because
remember yeah, like having a similar conversation with Lauren, which I know is like one of your connections that you still talk to.
Mhm.
Um, that like also just like the choice to like choose, I think choosing to belong too, like before the trip as
Yeah.
well is like really important as because we can other ourselves sometimes, like where we're like, oh, but I'm different in this way or I'm different in this way instead of deciding like that's fine. Like I belong here, like I'm supported, people want me here, like we're in
Mhm.
it together, sort of kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's beautiful. Okay. What, if anything, surprised you the most about this whole experience?
I think um like really the idea it didn't feel like there was a hierarchy. Like
Yeah.
yes, you were the leaders and yes, you had lots organized
Yeah.
and we talked about this a few minutes ago, and yet you were still in it in the moment and didn't know everything that was going to happen,
Right.
right? So on some other trips that I've done, like I did a trip with another like a bigger organization. It was a hiking and kayaking trip, but like everything was figured out. And you could
Yeah.
tell like, the leaders were the leaders, they were going to navigate everything, da 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 da. And this was not that. So that was a pleasant surprise. I think that helped to make me feel more confident in going forward,
Yeah.
as opposed
Like
to
kind of
someone
taking
did
your
everything.
education and making it more like you can actively step up into leadership yourself
Or
too
part
and
of it,
not have to have all the answers
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Um, yeah. I don't know. I think one of the other things was actually after the trip.
Hmm.
Um, so I flew in and out of Vegas, and I drove back to Vegas with another person from the trip.
Yeah.
And um, it was like, it just still felt very real and being able to have some conversations.
Yeah.
And like, I had one view of her during our trip.
Yeah.
And then in the car on the way back,
Got to know her better.
got to know her even better and
Yeah.
like see kind of under the surface a little bit. And it was just that reminder that what we see on the outside isn't always
The full picture of
everything.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's so
So,
hard sometimes too, because we're like so in our own lives. I mean, like one nice thing about the trail is usually it does give us the time, like we're literally hiking all day long. Like we have time to like uncover those kind of surfaces too. But also like it's a big group, so sometimes you don't get that one-on-one time with everyone. Um,
yeah.
So that's nice. And I think like post trip is a really, like Marta and I were talking about this, like a really great way to kind of reflect back and kind of like let it sort of wash over you and like, oh, what was my experience of this? Like, what am I taking away from it? All
Yeah.
those things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I guess, yeah, I shouldn't say, I don't think for some reason I wasn't surprised by a lot. Like I was just felt like I was in the moment, open to expecting anything.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of y'all, I mean, you guys do a really good job at like being open. And I think it does take like a little bit of that when you join a group experience like this or a coaching program. And
Hmm.
especially if you have like you're in coaching, so you kind of know coaching programs, but like if you've never done a coaching program before, like that can feel like a little awkward, a little new. You're like,
Hmm.
what am I supposed to expect here? So it kind of requires a sense of like willingness to be open, I think,
Yeah.
to what might unfold.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. And
Yeah.
we talked a little bit about kind of like life after the program. It sounds like you have gotten clearer on like where you like your next steps are going to
Hmm.
lead you after retirement and take it from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the pastry school and stuff.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I love that. I'm
Yeah.
really like, I'm going to need a follow-up of where, when that happens and like where it takes you. And if
Hmm.
you need people to taste test your food, I'm sure you could call in our entire
Perfect.
group and we'll all come out and do that. Okay,
Maybe
but
I'll have to specialize in dehydrated desserts.
oh my goodness. You're like the fanciest. We can like
Right.
have like a 10 course like pastry,
Yeah.
but backpacking style. Oh,
Yeah.
we'll just take it back to our favorite lake and we'll do it all out there.
Perfect.
Let's do some fun, just like rapid fire questions. I just think it's like a fun little behind the scenes of like you and like what different people like and like what they're thinking about. I just kind of like to end interviews sort of like this. So what is your, after you, now you've had some backpacking experience, like what's your go-to trail snack?
All right. So my typical one is peanuts and M&Ms.
Oh, that's a great choice.
But as much as I love peanut M&Ms, it's not peanut M&Ms on the trail. It has to be
Nuts
peanuts and
and
M&Ms.
M&Ms.
Yes.
I like it though.
But the other thing is cowtails.
Cowtails.
They're
Wait,
like
tell
those
me more.
caramel, it's almost like a caramel straw with a creamy center.
Okay, a
They're
caramel.
like caramel creamies,
You know what?
but they're long and skinny.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yes. That sounds delicious. I wasn't sure, like
I
at
love
first, if
them.
cowtails. So I have a puppy now, and we buy him the weirdest like dog chews, and I was like, is cowtail like a jerky sort of like?
Nope, it's
Because you were looking for the
caramel
protein, so I
cream.
wasn't sure. But that sounds delicious. Okay. What is your, or what's like one to two things on your adventure bucket list, right now?
Right now, my adventure bucket list is more towards skiing.
Okay. Yes, I
Um,
remember us talking about like you being very into skiing and kind of shifting
yeah.
gears into that.
Yeah. I had before I did this, I actually had been on some like ski camps, women's ski camps.
Yes, yes.
Made me know like, okay, this group thing will be good. But so yeah, so I want to ski in Chile
Oh, that would be so
during
cool.
our summer, but
Yes, I've heard great
um
things.
yeah, yeah, I want to do that. I also want to get better at skiing moguls. And so
Yeah.
I don't know, tackling
I
that.
mean, I get that. I'm not much of a skier, but like those were always hard for me. I would always be like regretting my life choices when I found myself on a
Yeah.
mogul. I'm like, how did I get here? I thought I did everything I could to avoid this section.
Yeah, I'm getting better. My daughter and I laugh because we think like, all right, yes, yes. And then we're like, oh my God, another set of
They're
mogul.
so hard. I'm sure there's like a method to it.
There is.
I haven't given it enough effort to like say I've fully given it a shot. So,
Yeah.
okay, what's your favorite piece of gear that you can't live without?
Well, actually, it would be all trails
Oh, ooh, I like
because I
it.
was so nervous
Is that
about
what you prefer to
mountains.
navigate with is using all trails over Gaia?
Yeah,
I know some people do. I was just curious if that's the one you totally
Yeah.
lean
I'm
towards.
still not good at building my own.
Yeah.
Lauren and I were just talking the other night, like I can do it either All Trails or Gaia. I get to about 15, 20 minutes and I get overwhelmed and frustrated. I'm like, no, just come back to this later. Um, but having the trail that I'm doing and the
Yeah.
surrounding area downloaded, no matter what the app or whatever is, that I will not live without because
Yeah.
I have a
I
horrible sense of
agree.
direction.
I'm the same. I like
Start that
knowing.
way.
I like having my GPS and my maps and stuff like that. Just
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah.
Um, okay, what's one place you would happily visit over and over and over again?
This was a hard one for me. I tend to not go back to the same spot over and over again.
So interesting.
I know. So for me, it's more about being with, like, exploring or adventuring with my son or daughter.
It's like the people you're with.
It's the people I'm with.
I
Yeah.
love it. It's like
I'll
the
do that
cheesiest answer, but
anywhere.
it's so
I
good. I
know.
love it. I'm like I was one of those kids growing up where if I liked something, I would want to do it over and over and over again. So
Uh-huh.
I'm kind of like that as an adult too. I just like remember as a kid, my mom took me to Branson, Missouri. But what I remember about it is this mini golf course that we went to, and I made her take me there every day. And I'm kind of like that sometimes here too. I'll like find a place that I love, like
Well,
the
I do
Eastern
have a
Sierras
trail.
and
Yeah.
oh,
I
what's
do
your
have
go-to trail?
this go-to trail lately has been it's not even very long. It's like I think I could make it 4 or 5 miles and it's not a challenging. It was Trout Run,
Trout Run.
but it's the whole first part of it is just by water.
I love that too.
And you cross it one here and then you cross it up there. And I go there. I went there just a few weeks ago and I took my little camp chair, the little
Mm,
tiny one that I have for
yeah.
backpacking, and my journal. And I hiked part way in and I found this quiet spot, set up my chair, just sat there. I read a little bit, I
Love
journaled a
that.
little bit, and it's just a really peaceful place by the water. I will go back there over and over again.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, final question. What is your favorite way to celebrate after a big adventure?
A hamburger,
Yes. For me, that answer usually involves some sort of food.
food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You have a hamburger
definitely.
after? Is that what we had?
We did. We
Oh,
went to that place.
yeah,
I
I'm
know I had
okay.
a
I remember
hamburger.
it, but I forget the name of it. But I remember now in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we
that
had the
was,
guy that a
yeah,
group
he
of us
was kept
had.
cracking jokes.
Yes,
Yes.
because we had him like the first night before we started out, and then we're like, we
Yeah.
have to go back and have him again.
Oh,
Um,
that's right. You guys had been there before.
yeah.
That's
So
great.
definitely a burger. I also I like to journal about it and like
Yeah.
write about it and like to go back and look at the pictures that I took.
Yeah. Same.
But it has to be it's more about doing that with the people that I was with
Yeah.
because and other people they're interested.
Yeah. But they're
They're
not
willing
going
to
to
hear
like
it, but they don't
fully
just
understand the experience.
yeah. Yeah.
It's always so hard to convey that. It's like this was the trip in pictures, but it's like more than what you see in the pictures. In many
Yeah.
ways, like it's also pictures don't really show like the hard part as well or like the good parts and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about our trip. Like Sonia was doing the acro yoga,
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh.
right? And I did not
Went out of
do
her
it.
way to do so many. Yeah,
She
you
did
didn't
it.
do it at all?
Well, I didn't the first night I was like,
Oh,
oh
yes.
yeah, that looks really cool, but whatever, I'll be fine. And then she did it again the next day, and then she kept offering it. And then I was like, but it honestly, it took until that last day. It was the last stop, our last break, where I like trusted enough to let her do that.
Like
And so,
have that
like the thing
experience.
is, like anybody can watch that video and be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But to
Yeah,
know what it took in me to actually do it
right.
and
To
how,
like get out of your comfort zone, do it, like kind of be open and vulnerable to like be,
yeah, and it was emotional,
yeah. Also,
so
like that moment was that's also one of those cool moments too. We got to the top of the pass And we were only a couple miles away from the trailhead, but we were all like, let's just chill here for a while, like under the trees. And then that's when that happened. And we ended up taking like an hour or
Yeah.
hour and a half break, just chilling there before
Yep.
officially ending the trip.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
none of us wanted it to end. So,
Yeah. That
and the
was,
guy came through with the horses.
he was like, what are you doing
What
here?
y'all doing here?
Like, we're just being in the mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really special.
Yeah.
Okay, Jen, just before we officially close this, if you were thinking about somebody who's like a good fit for this experience, who would you recommend the Adventurous Reinvention Experience to?
Honestly, it's more about there's not somebody that I wouldn't recommend it to.
Right. I was
Maybe
like,
if
maybe I
somebody,
worded that question weird.
yeah, well, maybe if they don't like to wear the same clothes for 5 days in a row,
If you aren't interested in backpacking, maybe not for you.
maybe not for you. But if you wouldn't mind carrying your stuff for a few days,
Yes. Being a
um,
little bit stinky in the
being a little
backcountry with a group of
stinky.
strange women that are nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Okay, so what would you say to somebody who feels maybe stuck or unsure or like is kind of on the fence, if a program like the Adventurous Reinvention Experience is for them or not?
Mhm.
What kind of encouragement might you give them?
Well, if they're on the fence then I would think that they have an idea that something about it is for them. Like there's something that's drawing them there.
Yeah,
I would say go for it
yeah,
because there is something in it for everyone. It's like there's just a menu of things. You're going to take some and pick them up. Others you're going to let, and maybe you're going to come back to later.
yeah,
But if you're sitting on the fence, it means you're interested. And I would say jump off and sign up.
totally. And
Yeah.
I'll just like follow that up if you're ever on the fence too, like don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions.
Mhm.
And oh, I'm really not very scary to talk to. So you can always email me and I'll just have an open conversation with you. Um,
Yeah, and and while my public or my social media is not out there public, but if I'm happy to talk, if anybody has questions, they're like, "Oh, of course, Allison's going to say this because she's,
yeah,
oh, the,
I'm a little biased.
yeah." But I am sure anybody, any of us who have done it, I can only speak for myself, but I'm guessing many of them would be the same. Like, reach
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had talked to Jen earlier before we started this recording, and so if anybody did like, if you connected with Jen in any way or her story, or you like, there's just something that sparked your interest there, or you want to get more of her thoughts on the experience, Jen has been so gracious to say like, if you would like to talk to her, you are more than welcome to like email me at support@shedreamsofalpine.com, and we will connect you with Jen, and that way. So yeah, thanks so much for being willing to do that, Jen.
Sure.
And thank you so much for hopping on this podcast episode with me and sharing like a little bit more about your experience in the Adventurous Reinvention Experience. And that way, like, I think it's super helpful. People can get behind the scenes and hear what it's actually like. And everybody's experience is different. So I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing that with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, you guys, that is the end of our episode. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week. Bye. Hey, I wanted to thank you real quick for tuning into the show and listening all the way to the end. If you love this episode and you want deeper support in becoming a safe, confident, and self-sufficient hiker and backpacker, then head over to shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist to learn more about our Backpacking Badass coaching program, where I teach you absolutely everything you need to know to be self-reliant on the trails and stop waiting around on others for the adventure invite. So I'd love to help you more in your journey of stepping into your adventurous identity, and that program is the absolute best place for us to start working together. So again, that's shedreamsofalpine.com/waitlist, and you can learn all about it there. So that's it for today, folks. I hope you get to spend some time outside this week, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new episode. Bye.